Okay, here we are into the final stretch of our, development across the lifespan conversation. And we're going to talk about factors that impact sexuality as we age into, older adulthood. So this first conversation mostly pertains to half of the population, menopause. Menopause is, I thought I had the definition next. Well, I should probably define it. Menopause. So if I told you guys way back that like meno means month, and then pause means pause. So you're going to stop having your monthly cycle. And that means that no longer does the person menstruate, but also doesn't ovulate. And hormone patterns are going to change, right, as a result of not ovulating. So all facets, all those things that had gotten ramped up during puberty are shutting down now at menopause. So there's different things that can cause menopause. There's what I'm mostly talking about, which is natural age-related hormone decline. Like all women at some point in their lives, barring one of the other things that we're going to be talking about, will ultimately experience the hypothalamus, which normally sends out that gonadotropin releasing hormone to the pituitary gland, which then sends out the follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone to the follicle, so that it'll ripen an egg, release that egg that then secretes a bunch of estrogens into the blood system. And we got that cycle going on. As we age, the cycle gets interrupted and the hypothalamus stops sending out the gonadotropin releasing hormone. As a result, one of the ways that they diagnose that a woman is entering natural age-related menopause is that she'll get a big spike in follicle stimulating hormone. She's actually trying to convince that egg to be ovulated. Come on, man, I'm sending out FSH. Come on, man. And the follicle's not responding anymore. So this cycle gets broken as a result of the follicle becoming, non-responsive to the hormones. There's hysterectomy-induced menopause that occurs when a woman has what's called a complete or total hysterectomy, where there is a removal of the ovaries. So that kind of hysterectomy will immediately cast the woman into hysterectomy-induced menopause, because in the absence of the ovaries, the hormone pattern is going to be disrupted and so on. Chemotherapy or radiation can cause menopause. Something I'm stammering over, I'm trying to be careful with, is that, there are women who think that they've gone into menopause because of chemotherapy or radiation, and then they conceive a baby and they're like, I thought I couldn't have children anymore. I'm not having my monthly cycles, and what's going on? And it turns out that their eggs are still being released. So the absence of menstruation should not be assumed to be chemotherapy induced or radiation induced menopause. Menstruation can cease temporarily. You can have amenorrhea in response to chemotherapy or radiation and still be ovulating. I'm talking about literally where the eggs are no longer ripening, and it's because of damage from chemotherapy or radiation. And then finally, there's primary ovarian insufficiency, where you have a person who has underdeveloped ovaries, and so they don't produce the hormones. And this could be very early on in life that they experience menopause, because they're just not getting naturally the hormones that they should be getting from their ovaries. All right. So those are the things that can cause it. And like I said, I'm mostly talking about the naturally occurring type, because it has this sort of slow onset that the other type that are sort of more medically related don't have. And menopause that happens in age-related menopause is something that, most women will experience at similar ages and things like that. So some of the symptoms, I pulled this off the internet. That's why the image looks so bad with the checkerboards in the back. That's the sign they didn't want me to take that image, but I took it anyway. So this is a big, long list of lots of things that women have experienced and that have been attributed to changing hormone levels. heart palpitations, headaches, difficulty concentrating, irritability, a lot of symptoms that sound a lot like PMS that we talked about before. Changes in their menstrual cycle. It could be shorter, it could be longer. They might experience some spotting in between. Really common for women to experience vaginal dryness that can cause painful intercourse, because with the hormones changing, with the lack of estrogen, then lubrication can be affected. You get more soreness and stiffness, especially in the joints, like even in your fingers and things like that. The joints will be sore. Increases in back pain, just all sorts of things that people have complained about, right? Like this is a wide variety of things. They might experience weight gain. They might have night sweats or hot flashes, things like that. Most women do not have all these symptoms. I'm happy to report. Or if they have, multiples of them, some of them are very mild and others are the ones that are really the annoying ones for them. And so for most women, they'll have some constellation of some of these symptoms. Historically, over the past probably 50 years, doctors have been looking to treat some of those symptoms by replacing the missing hormones. And one of the things that really motivated hormone replacement therapy is the belief that women, first off, there was the mistaken belief that women have lower rates of heart attacks in their pre-menopausal years than comparably aged men do. And they now are realizing, actually, that's not true. Women have heart attacks also. It just happens to be the case that their heart attacks oftentimes get labeled as panic attacks. So they now realize that basic premise was faulty. And so the basic premise had been that women had lower rates of heart attacks when they were premenopausal, and then they tried to explain why that was true. And one hypothesis was that estrogen was protective. And so they thought that the best thing that we could do for all women is to give them estrogen, and that way they would avoid heart attacks, heart disease, things like that. So they were doing a big major study of hormone replacement therapy in the late 90s, and they discovered that women were actually having more heart attacks while on the treatment during the study. So they actually had to cease the study. And it wasn't like all the women, but it was, 3 times as many women as normally would have heart problems. So it went from like 1 woman per 1,000 to 3, and they're like, this is unacceptable. So they stopped the treatments. And now what they say is if a woman uses hormone replacement therapy, it needs to be very targeted. Like it needs to be very temporary. It's only to treat certain symptoms, and that she needs to ultimately be weaned off of it. I know my mother-in-law was on hormone replacement therapy for like 20 years, and that's not what they do anymore. So if it's used briefly. There are lots of natural remedies that have been touted, and some have actually been studied. So touted would be the wild yam cream. The idea with the wild yam cream is that it's a precursor, they say, to estrogen. And so if you rub it on yourself, you'll absorb it through your blood system, and then it'll convert into estrogen inside of you. I'm not aware of any actual double-blind tests that have established that it does anything. Black cohosh is thought to help with things like hot flashes. And, I'm not even sure what the claimed mechanism is for why that's supposed to work. But some women really swear by it and say it really helps. The one thing on the screen that I can tell you has been double-blind tested, aside from the hormone replacement therapy, which has been shown to have beneficial effects for some symptoms, is yoga. Yoga has been used in actual studies, and they have found that women who practice yoga experience fewer of the postmenopausal or the menopausal symptoms as women who don't engage in a mindful kind of physical activity. So they think that it's a combination of the mindfulness that goes along with yoga, the focus on your breathing and other kinds of things that go on in yoga, as well as the stretching and the postures and the strengthening that goes along with performing the yoga poses. So under the natural remedies, the only one that I can really confidently assure you has been shown to do something is yoga. I'm sure you're all thinking, yeah, but what about male menopause? All right. Well, first, I thought I would show you that, yes, in fact, male testosterone does decline with age. So you see, during the period between, 20 and 40, testosterone's reasonably high level, right? It's at 600 nanograms per deciliter. or more. And then it's declining, but it started declining back at like age 30, and it doesn't really start to become, meaningful or noticeable until you're getting down to about 50. And then it sort of plateaus off. And, so some people say, well, see, that decline is going to produce either low T, or it's going to cause, loss of libido or other changes that are similar to what women go through. In fact, I found this cartoon. It's from Your Choice Primary Care, but I'm not sure I don't think this is a great medical resource, I'd have to say. Because first off, they're calling it male menopause or andropause. And then they're saying, it's associated with erectile dysfunction, reduced sexual desire, insomnia, increased body fat, reduced muscle strength, decreased bone density, swollen breasts, loss of body hair, loss of energy, increased sleepiness. So yes, men can have these symptoms if they have insufficient testosterone, but it turns out that the degree of, the level of testosterone has to be really low to produce most of these effects. And most men don't get to that point. If they do, it's like when they're really, really significantly older, late 70s or early 80s, where they'd be at that level. Most 50-year-old men are not at that level. And if they are experiencing significant drops in testosterone, it's usually enough to like exercise to bring it back. They don't need to treat it with medications or anything else. And so it does beg the question of whether this is in any way comparable to what women go through. To kind of give you a picture, here's testosterone on the top and what men experience. And so you see that decline on the right. Here's how it is for women. The estradiol is the estrogen. And, so you have this period of reproductive capability where this high level of estrogen, basically, if we zoomed in on it, we'd see the up and down of the monthly cycles and stuff. But basically it's up at this high level. And then there's this cliff that you fall off of, right? Where it's literally the estrogen is all but gone from the bloodstream. And that's not anything comparable to the male hormone changes that we see. So I'm going to have to go with, I'm not sure about the andropause idea. Now, what about sexual functioning with age? So let's use the Masters and Johnson model. So we've got excitement, plateau, orgasm, and resolution on the left side. And then let's compare the changes that women experience and the men experience. So women, one of the most common complaints as they age is that it takes longer for them to experience any lubrication. And when they do experience lubrication, it's a lot less than it was when they were younger. And that there can be what we call like atrophy of the vagina, especially in women who don't have frequent sexual activity. It's sort of a use it or lose it kind of thing. So a woman who has sex more often will see less deterioration of her vagina. For men, something that they kind of can complain about is that it may take them longer to achieve an erection. And when they do achieve an erection, it might be not as firm as it used to be. But I'm going to address that in a second, that it might actually be an advantage if they have a female partner. For women, the orgasmic platform is less pronounced. So what that means is that previously their uterus would lift up and that tenting would occur in the top 1/3 of the vagina. We talked about that during arousal. That rising of the uterus is less pronounced during the plateau phase as women age. And so it may be more likely that their partner's penis might hit their cervix, stuff like that. So you get less tenting. For men, during the plateau phase, when their blood pressure is supposed to get up and their heart rate's supposed to get up, which women's supposed to also, but for men, they may experience less muscle tension during the plateau phase. Their testes may not elevate as high and as close to the body as they used to. Overall, they may spend a longer period in the plateau phase than they did when they were younger. So the period of, feeling of max arousal, but not kicking over into orgasm, it may take longer. Now, I just want to make a case that a lot of women who have male partners who are, older, so they've started to have some of these slower response times and stuff, have reported that actually the female sexual responsiveness has increased as the male has slowed down. That her needs are being met better during this later part of life as their male partner is less orgasm focused and more pleasure focused. So, double-edged sword. Now, during orgasm, both sexes report fewer contractions than they used to experience when they were younger. For some women, contractions may be painful. And remember, there's contraction of the uterus that occurs during orgasm that can, if there are any kind of adhesions or anything that, over time and stuff like that, things from endometriosis and things like that may have built up. And so that contractions during orgasm may be painful as we age and we have more of those things present. Men oftentimes will report that when they ejaculate, it doesn't feel as forceful or as powerful as it had been when they were younger. And they may not have that sense of ejaculatory inevitability. They may report that, I was enjoying everything. Everything was going along. I was having fun. And then all of a sudden I was ejaculating, and it's like I didn't even feel that sense that it was about to come. And that can be a little bit disappointing because they maybe wanted to enjoy the build up more. During the resolution phase, both males and females will report that their vasocongestion goes away faster and things like that than it had when they were younger. However, for men, the refractory period tends to get longer and longer with age. So while their body might sort of return back to an unaroused state pretty quickly, they can't sort of resume sexual activity as quickly as they could when they were younger. So I just wanted to leave you guys with maybe an optimistic older person perspective. There was a study conducted in 2012, and they interviewed women between the ages of 40 and 90. And so that's a pretty broad range. But we could call it, we're looking at, towards the older end of the spectrum. They reported on average that they were arousable, that they were satisfied with their sexual activity, that they were able to lubricate easily and adequately for their activities, that they reached orgasm reliably, easily, and satisfyingly. So overall, the women were reporting that basically their sex lives were satisfying. And so we can assume that their male partners were thinking the same things, or their female partners, if they had them, were feeling the same things. And so one of the things that we're interested in as, baby boomers are aging and there's so many older people, is that we're really interested in them having satisfying lives, right? And including satisfying sexual lives. And so we're excited to see that older people are reporting on average, these satisfying, sort of descriptions of what they're experiencing when they engage in sexual activity. So hopefully that's an optimistic finish to this, lifespan approach to how, we develop sexually and our attitudes and our behaviors. All right. Well, I will see you guys in the next subject.